Welcome to the KD Report. Today, Susan Rice, President Obama's national security advisor, went on TV and told her version of why she sought to unmask American members of President Trump's political team during last year's contentious election cycle.
Absolutely not for any political purposes, to spy, expose, anything.
But did you leak the name of Mike Flynn?
I leaked nothing to nobody, and never have and never would. But let me about the contents of a classified report, to talk about the individuals on the foreign side who were the targets of the report itself, or any Americans who may have been collected upon incidentally, is to disclose classified information. I'm not going to do that. There's no equivalence between so-called unmasking and leaking.
Unmasking an American for the purpose of exposing national security is allowed within the intel community, but it's a big no-no to leak that information to the media.
To me, it is significant. I don't solicit reports. I only receive what the intelligence community thinks I or any other senior official needs to see. So they're giving it to me. If I read it and I think, in order for me to really understand, is this significant or not so significant, I need to understand who the U.S. person is. I can make that request. The intelligence community then process that request through their normal procedures. It's necessary for the Secretary of State or the Secretary of Defense or the CIA director to do their jobs. We can't be passive consumers of this information and do our jobs effectively to protect the American people. Imagine if we saw something of grave significance that involved Russia or China or anybody else interfering in our political process, and we needed to understand the significance of that. For us not to try to understand it would be dereliction of duty.
Under the Fourth Amendment, the government, with rare exceptions, must get a court-approved warrant based on probable cause before wiretapping or using electronic surveillance on a U.S. citizen. The Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act of 1978 established FISA Court to review the NSA and FBI request for search warrants when an American citizen may be involved in foreign espionage.
And I have an interest in that as an American citizen, as a former U.S. official. I would want to be helpful in that process if I could.
We know Chairman of the House Intel Committee, Devin Nunes, says the classified data he had access to was not about Russia.
Last week I found out that there was additional information that came forward to me that had nothing to do with Russia, but has everything to do with whether or not Americans were masked properly.
But Senator Rand Paul, a former opponent of President Trump, is asking Susan Rice to testify before the Senate Intelligence Committee.
I didn't necessarily get a yes or a no from that answer that she gave, but the question I would ask Susan Rice as she came before Congress: did you discuss with the president that you were unmasking Trump transition officials? In what world would it ever have been appropriate for White House staff, White House political staff, to be unmasking conversations, highly classified and private conversations with Trump, General Flynn, and others? I see no world in which that would be appropriate. She needs to be made to answer for this. This is not a benign thing, because it gives a black eye to the entire intelligence community if they're gathering up all these private conversations and that they're going to be released to the media. This is a big crime, and we need to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, so look, we go to the executive branch at least once or twice a week. This is not unusual, because there are intelligence products that we don't have access to in the House of Representatives, but we do have the clearances to see them. So we've known about this long before Trump actually sent his famous tweet out about the wiretapping at Trump Tower. We've known that there was additional unmasking of Americans' names. We had sources that had provided us that information.
To clarify what nefarious activity Trump's people were discussing when they were swept up in the NSA's expansive surveillance program.
My former colleagues and frankly speaking, the people on the Hill, it was more actually aimed at telling the Hill people, get as much information as you can, get as much intelligence as you can before President Obama leaves the administration, because I had a fear that somehow that information would disappear with the senior people who left. So it would be hidden a way in the bureaucracy that the Trump folks, if they found out how we knew what we knew about the Trump staff's dealing with Russians, that they would try to compromise those sources and methods, meaning we would no longer have access to that intelligence. So I became very worried because not enough was coming out into the open, and I knew that there was more. We have very good intelligence on Russia. So then I had talked to some of my former colleagues, and I knew that they were trying to also help get information to the Hill.
According to a National Security Council review, a new report found that Susan Rice made multiple requests to unmask U.S. persons in intelligence reports that related to Trump transition activities. So why did she tell PBS 2 weeks ago?
I know nothing about this. I was surprised to see reports from Chairman Nunes on that count today. But he said that whatever he was referring to was a legal, lawful surveillance, and that it was potentially incidental collection on American citizens. And
maybe this is why FBI Director James Comey and NSA Director Admiral Mike Rogers haven't returned calls to the House Intel Committee. Maybe they're looking into Obama's expansion of Executive Order 12333 that opened the door for more unelected government appointees, like Susan Rice, to view unmasked American names. Or maybe they're trying to explain the posse comitatus rules that say the military cannot operate on U.S. soil. In the meantime, Americans will have to wait for another committee hearing or leaked intelligence report.
Take on the intelligence community. They have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you.
Thanks for joining me today. For more information on this story and others, please visit thekdreport.com. And remember, news is more than a soundbite.